Hi, everybody. This is day 1,488 days since Richard was premeditatedly murdered on Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas in July of 2020. And this has become an international capital murder case. And today is a big deal. We have breaking news. Leilani Hart has issued another confession, and so we're combing through it. Let's see, make sure everything is done. Another confession, and I can tell you this: I'm not hiding. Um, I'm here every day, and you can find me through 941-677-0060. And we are really shaking things up. I was making a couple notes on huge points of this and what Leilani Hart's new confession. This is another confession, right? We have the notarized affidavit to the FBI. We have documents of conversations between her and her ex-husband, then her husband, James Courtney Hart. And now we have other documents, and then we have, of course, this new one. And I can tell you this whole live stream should be called Bob Moore El Paso Matters Worst Nightmare, right? This is their horror story. This is Richard haunting Bob Moore and El Paso Matters and El Paso Community Foundation. Um, this confession is the worst nightmare for Bob Moore because, of course, we were targeted by Bob Moore and El Paso Matters. Our son's case, his death story, was targeted by false information given um, by Bob Moore and El Paso Matters. We issued a cease and desist. We're working that all out. Um, Clearly in the wrong because, one of the biggest points that he has done so wrong with El Paso Matters and El Paso Community Foundation is failing to communicate with us. Okay, because we have tried no less than 15 times to communicate and share information with them, and they have failed to communicate with us, yet they target us in our son's case, and they're part of a criminal group that is from the rogue group, criminal group, coming from the original response team, and that is huge. Why is Bob Moore communicating with the likes of Leilani Hart and Dallas Hart and Jules Tuganon Chan and James Hart and Amber Chase, right? Why is he communicating with Amber Chase? Why is he in this group? About 16 individuals, right? Um, why isn't he communicating with the Gold Star family? That is, very transparent as we possibly can be. And the more that we get into this, because this case is so convoluted, right? It's so enormous. It's so enormous being a code red, being an internal, premeditated murder of a whistleblower. Talk about vulnerable being in the barracks, um, being retaliated against, being under Dallas Hart as a platoon leader, right? Who we know in possession of child pornography, as Leilani Hart has confessed. Now, in this confession, this is kind of like the worst nightmare for Bob Moore in El Paso Matters and the worst nightmare for James Hart, because James Hart also, she admits here that he was getting called out for child pornography, which, he's still on Fort Bliss and he can go to prison for this, right? And I talked to him, um, and absolutely, the confession we have to really go through, because Leilani Hart's mind is rattled. Something has really rattled her mind. And, so the confession, um, you know, you have to, um, it's almost like you have to decipher it, right? Because you have to go and check dates, check the individuals. Uh, you just go through line by line and see if it's corroborated, see if it's fake, if it's a lie. And so it's going to take a little time because it's pretty long. It's, I'm almost thinking it's longer than her first one. I don't know, about the same length. And one of the things that she corroborates in this is her connection with Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia and Thomas Hoffman. And so we're going to, go through that, and um, and she's got so much stuff here wrong that we can just mark off, right? That we know that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. But you cannot just simply mark it wrong, because there is projection there. So she might be projecting, this whole thing with the getaway car. She talks about a getaway car. Um, and it seems like she's projecting something that she does, because the way she's using it, and anyway, the way she's using it is so wrong. But why is she using it? And who else has used it? And, and it's in the nighttime, and it's in reference to when Richard um, was taken, which goes against what we've been told, that it was in the morning, right? That it was in the morning, it wasn't at night. We've always believed it had to be in the night, you know, um, but who are we? They're the security that was detail that was supposed to be looking after our son didn't show up for duty. And then we've been lied to over and over and over again. And, so this is a good report to, or this confession is really good to submit to the authorities. Of course, we're going to do that. Um, and I think that it really, uh, well, once we go through it, it's very hard to get this kind of information and within minutes or an hour decipher it, because you really do have to do your homework, and this whole thing, 4 years of investigation, um, day in and day out, y'all, day in and day out. It's just, and you think that it can't get any more wrong, right? Like evil, that it can't get any more evil. And then it does. And for the new information coming out about the insurance fraud, and knowing that she's already had problems recorded about insurance fraud with USAA. That it's all about lies and fraud. And then when she gets caught as the prime suspect in the murder case, the premeditated, brutal murder case of a Fort Bliss whistleblower soldier, our son, Richard Halliday, then she'll just, I think she's just grasping for anything that will stick here, and in doing that, it shows that she's just very, very rattled because we have not lied when we have said that there are ongoing and active state and federal investigations going on behind the scenes, that we have been working diligently, turning in um, notifications and criminal complaints and letter after letter after letter with all of our documented evidence being hard evidence, irregularities, circumstantial evidence. And, we are doing that constantly where we feel that this information is relevant and whoever has oversight needs to have this information. And after 4 years of doing that, we've gotten traction. And, they're piecing all of this information and evidence together. And they're going, oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. Oh, yeah. Some of it, they're dirty, some of it, but a lot of it is just they, you just have to um, keep piecing the puzzle together for them so that until they can see clearly how bad the crime is here, because there were so many lies out there. This is the problem. There were so many lies because the initial reports on Richard in the law enforcement community to the law enforcement community was such a smear campaign on Richard and so many lies. You saw that with Anthony Swafford. And, he was so convinced that he was even rude to us when we communicated with him because he was like, oh, you're like the mother of Richard Halliday. Um, and I just want to say, yes, I'm the mother of Richard Halliday, a hero that was murdered for reporting trafficking, child trafficking, drug trafficking, gun running trafficking, and all of the swindling. And we are piecing because veterans are coming forward more and more. This whole thing with the CVA is part of her confession this time, the Combined Veterans Association. And, that has been very, very helpful for us. The veterans have been very, very helpful for us. And more are coming forward and absolutely corroborating that Dallas Hart was Richard's platoon leader in Delta Battery 143 ADA 32nd ADCOM right there at Fort Bliss. Um, and, I mean, how do you think Jonathan Ambrose is 143 ADA 32nd ADCOM? Um, they're coming forward. And, I just think this confession should be called the worst nightmare for Bob Moore of El Paso Matters and for James Hart because it implicates James Hart with the uh once again. It's not like a new allegation. It is a corroborating allegation here, putting it together about him being in possession of child pornography and fitting together with the accusations of incest, the communication documents that we have, that corroborates that it's been going on for a long time, the incest, the child sexual assaults, illegal weapons purchasing. Very, this is where I think she's projecting because it's been very chaotic in her household as she notarized that, threats were made on her life. There's a propensity to do violence in her household. So I think it's a very, very chaotic life that she's led, and she's grasping because she's facing the death penalty. She's facing the haunting of Richard. Richard's face every night, you know, the haunting of Richard, and which I think has set off this confession. Um, when you're being haunted um, by someone like Richard Halliday, who absolutely was trying to do the right thing. God has made his spirit very, very strong, and the light of his spirit very, very bright. And a very powerful, when you have that kind of very powerful spirit, um, the haunting is severe. It is severe. And, it's, we have confirmed that a little secret in the military is that this soldiers coming back that have confirmed kills are haunted by those that they have killed. It is a really a terrible, terrible thing. And you know, it goes to what I was talking about last night, and I think last night was kind of like a really off the wall kind of live stream. It was just so off the wall. I just and I think tonight is heading that way too because I want to talk about these things that um, is being researched right now. I mean, maybe they've been researched for a while, but they've been being brought to my attention. People have made an argument to me about why we are getting to the truth. And of course, with me, it's look, my duty as a Christian is to establish justice. It's to establish righteousness, to do what is right, right? Not in my sight, not in my thinking, but to do what's right according to God, right? That's my duty. And from the very, very get-go, we knew something really wrong happened to Richard, and we were right all along because the Board of Inquiry has overwhelming evidence to say that Richard was murdered on Fort Bliss and give us the declaration of death, right? Give us a declaration of death, which, we still don't have like a death certificate, but that we are told is just as good. I don't know if it's just as good for Park University because they're not responding to our request for his academic records. Why not? Why not? We're a Gold Star family. They know that Richard is dead, and they should give us our son's academic records. Okay. Um, and so any claim, and we're talking about the Board of Inquiry for the United States government. I mean, it's a big deal when they don't even give you back your son's remains, yet they admit that Richard was murdered on Fort Bliss, and then they give you a declaration of death. Because the declaration of death is based on all the evidence that we have collected and given them, and the evidence that they themselves have that we don't know about. And one of the and this is going to be a bad day for the law enforcement inside of the military because what Leilani Hart's confession also proves is that she still has access to files that nobody else has except for the family. Okay, she has access to information. There's a leak. There, someone's giving her, someone is either tapping in, hacking, and you know that there are people in that criminal group that she's associated with that are self proclaimed hackers. And so they have access or getting access to confidential information. And so, it's very, I can tell you this, there's most of it is lies or projection, you know, but you have to really comb through it, every word, and think what is going on here? Where is she getting this information? Why is she putting out this information? Why is she confessing again? Why is she trying to divert attention to, what have we been talking about lately? We've been talking about the proof that is the evidence that is mounting about insurance fraud, right? That's what we've been talking about. We've been talking about insurance fraud and connecting the dot, and of course, FitFam. But FitFam is just one little part of this criminal group that, and what are they doing? You have, in order to, one of the easiest ways to, and I shouldn't even say this, I shouldn't say, don't listen to me. But, insurance fraud is, uh, unfortunately, we don't have enough oversight. We have the oversight for it, but we don't have enough people doing their job. And we have so much fraud when it comes to insurance, right? So much fraud. And that's why insurance prices are so high. And that's why our medical bills are so high. And our other, vehicle bill, there's so much fraud when it comes to insurance. And and that's not me saying it. That's absolutely known. And if you're dealing with the military and if you're dealing with cashing in on veterans and all of that, which seems to be a theme with her, um, what do you have to have in place and who do you have to have connections with? Well, we know that she confirms that she has connections with Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia and Thomas Hoffman of Bliss Avenue, which is connections with Danae Katzen, right? And that's Bliss Avenue, which is connections with Jonathan Ambrise. And that's that's important because he's security, right? He's another security person, cyber security person, and they're trying to make him out to be like some kind of little con man that went wrong, right? But that's not who he is. He is definitely an LLC man, an LLC Cyberman, and Danae Katzen, who targeted um, our son's case to divert, to lie, right, to give false information, to misdirect, has connections and very cozy connections and very at home connections with KTSM David Candelera, which is Natasia Paloma, with Natasia Paloma, and others that it really hurts. It really hurts to know who is all involved in this, because you trust them or you think they're a nice person, but they really have been led wrong. They really are up to no good. And and you have to, who is connected with Bliss Avenue, with Rosa Maria, right? With the Denia Katzens, with the Ortegas, with Belen Ortega and Lydia Ortega and Heriberto Eddie Ortega, which I don't talk about him much, but well, we've got tons of evidence on him, and you know, but like the bigger fish is Mario Raskin Ortiz because he's illegal and he has power. He's unqualified and he has power. And if you're going to mess with insurances and conduct insurance fraud, it's very, very handy to have the medical examiner in your pocket, right? Um, a person that is in charge, is a judge of the cause and manner of death, and in charge of giving you the death certificates, right? That's a bigger fish. I mean, I don't know that, the investigators should be doing this, but, it seems that the very people that should be investigating this are covering it up. And so who's covering up for, this illegal, um, chief medical examiner taking, uh, extracting from the people of El Paso 450,000 plus, the fraud, the tampering of all of these cases, the botching of all of these cases, and that is Veronica Escobar. Put him there. She was the judge. She was the county judge. And of course, the county attorney was Joanne Bernal. And, the Joanne Bernal saw the writing on the wall and resigned. Um, and and of course the FBI supervisory director, Eddie Nieto Jr., Jesus Eddie Nieto Jr., right? Still up to no good. Still up to no good. And, because it's very, very profitable, all this trafficking. And then, if it's an allegation, it's an allegation because, when you have attorneys that are insurance attorneys, um, and you have clearly, um, insurance consulting, we're going to consult you with your insurance. And then Leilani Hart's husband, James Hart, the Dallas Hart, Richard's platoon leader's father, is sitting on the VA board for disability, veterans disability, with absolute access to all of this very um, confidential files of the most vulnerable members of our military. And, he's in that position, and then you got the lawyers and you got Bob Moore, you got Bill Hicks with absolute history of dealing with insurances and divorces and stuff. And, so you got the people calling out that have clean records, total clean records. I have a clean record. Um, eh, our Team Farm Richard Halliday, we're pretty sparkly. We're pretty sparkly. Richard is very sparkly. And that's what I'm saying. They could take his life, his physical life, but the spirit lives on. And Richard, knowing Richard, when they took his life, that didn't mean that he stopped fighting for righteousness. And this is where things get very interesting. Um, we've been getting information that, lots of information, um, but that water has memory. And I hope you read between the lines in that. Okay, I haven't said it just to be, water has memory, and all this research that has been conducted in the lots of research being conducted shows that water has memory. And of course, we know in the spiritual realm, water is absolutely central. Central. Um, and so that means that Richard's spirit, since he's baptized with water, has memory. And that memory that is in water that no one can stop is coming forth. The truth is coming forth. And that is just, that gives you the shivers when you really look at the, some people can just take it on faith. When you're supposed to be baptized with water in the name of God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Ghost, um, and you understand that, and some people can take that on faith, and then there's those that want to look into it. They want to look at the experiments. They want to see what water is. And when you research it and living water, living water, and then you learn there's there's a sentient power, right? A spiritual power, an awareness, an ability to perceive, right? Um, and my oma always said stars are like that, right? Stars are sentient. Um, and now they're even saying because of water having memory that even our clouds and everything that has a sentient um, aspect to it. And that is just fascinating for me. I'm really keeping up with that research. Being a Christian and knowing that you have to read the signs and knowing that creation is absolutely, you have the Holy Spirit is but not limited to every word that proceeds from the mouth of God, the sacraments, and creation. And when you know that, and you can't live by bread alone, you have to have every word that proceedeth from the mouth of God. And then you know that none of us can live together and progress without the sacraments. That's why marriage is being attacked so much. That's why baptism is being attacked so much, and the Lord's Supper and ordination. That's why voting is such a big deal and it's being attacked. Um, where unction is has been so attacked. Confession is being attacked. You see that because this is how uh, confirmation, like growing into adulthood, taking responsibility of yourself, governing yourself, governing yourself. That's what confirmation is. Richard was confirmed in Ireland, and he was a young adult, and he absolutely knew he had to govern himself now, not with his own laws, not with his own feelings, not with his own desires, but from every word that proceedeth from the mouth of God, the sacraments and creation. Not limited to that. What is righteous and godly, right? And, and I'm not claiming to be an expert on any of that. I'm saying this is my faith. And you walk in it and you keep learning and learning and learning, and the water is speaking, and that's why people are coming forward, because the tide is bringing them in. You can't stop it. It's just the way God's creation works. You can't stop the tide. And so I believe that Leilani Hart's confession, new confession and our old confession, is is absolutely something she could not stop herself from doing. And her affidavit confession that she had notarized and referred to the FBI, um, made was more um, organized and calm, right? Even with the you know allegations of incest and a 7-year old of her friend's child, right? Her friend's child. Oh yeah, stay with my family. They'll just sexually assault your child in my master bedroom, right? And then we won't report it. So, the whole thing with Leilani is that why isn't she arrested? Because for reporting that she did not report it, she should be arrested. And the whole child pornography in her home, she should be arrested. And then if it's found to be not true, even though she notarized it, had it notarized, and I talked to the notary who confirmed who confirmed that she absolutely swore that this was true. And then I talked to um, James Hart, and he confirmed that this Marlon Soto was calling him saying, well, I'm just going to tell you, you're clear, we're working on this, you're clear. Who does that in an investigation? Someone that is connected, right? That has this criminal network. And Marlon Soto Hernandez is part of this criminal network along with Tavina Nusa. Okay, he's paying attention, and um, so many things happen. I look back and I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Um, and I hope I need to ask some questions. Thank you, Anicia, for coming on. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you. Prayers to you and your family for justice for Richard. And I think that this is an indication of desperation. This projection, this desperation, but it is a huge nightmare for Bob Moore, for James Hart, for anybody that has put everything on the line to cover up this international um, premeditated murder of a Fort Bliss whistleblower, Richard Halliday. Okay, and you know, our names are so out there, especially my husband's boy. His name we're with the SB4 case. We're writing the FBI all the time. We're writing, I don't want to say it out loud, um, all of these agencies, because we don't want to have them targeted, um, all of these agencies and organizations and individuals, uh, we have submitted the evidence to. And, so we're not hiding, we're not colluding with anybody, conspiring. We are just collecting and documenting and filing. That's what we're doing. And of course, we've had to be our own media because Bob Moore um, is with this group. And why are they with this? Why is he with this group? Because when you follow the money, it leads to El Paso Community Foundation, this is confirmation, people need to understand this, who were getting investigated for the distribution, for allegations of fraud in the distribution of the monies that came in through donations and from the state. And yeah, the state, absolutely, for victims of the Walmart mass shooting. And that being exposed, 2 days later, after the announcement that was being investigated, they petitioned for Yvonne Rosales to be removed. So what is that about? That is about fraud. And we know that um, because of court cases that are public, uh, that there is a connection with Alexander Hofmann with El Paso Community Foundation. That means Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia has a connection. And, that couple was divorced in 2001. And she was one of uh, the concerns because of the divorce, because um, we know through public that she received um, tens of thousands of dollars from the victim's fund, and she does not qualify to be a victim. And so, for Leilani Hart to be connected so closely with Thomas Hoffman and Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, and to be involved in fraud, and it seemingly to be in the family because of Danae Katzen being in the family, seemingly with Jonathan Ambrose being in the family to do this fraud and having other connections that we know, but we're not at liberty to say of, legal lawyers that are, experts in insurance and have been accused of insurance fraud, tampering, and all of that. And then, you know, having connections, Bliss Avenue connection, Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia is connected to Mario Raskin Ortiz, is connected to the mortuary affairs, the funeral parlor, all of that, who have connections on all this insurance stuff. So, is there a possibility? Is there a suspicion? Is there legitimate, would they have the criminal network in place to commit fraud on insurance, on the military insurance? Is there a suspicion that they were manipulating Richard's file in order to tamper with beneficiaries, to tamper with his insurance policy? Um, you know, there's different levels of insurance. Who knows what Richard chose? Um, that is confidential. So, to have access to information shows a tampering, shows a suspicion of a criminal network, and they absolutely have the criminal net. They absolutely have the professional manpower in the right positions to carry out such a scheme, right? To carry out such a crime, such a network of crimes. It's a network of crimes. And for it to lead to a premeditated murder, an international premeditated murder, and I'm praying that they didn't go into another area of trafficking that would just, I mean, yeah, with the dismemberment of Richard, with not giving us his remains, what are they keeping from us? It must be disastrous. It must be absolutely horrible and disastrous. Um, and they have enough information to say, yes, okay, he was absolutely murdered. Because they couldn't stop the flow of truth. They couldn't stop the flow of truth because there's memory all around us. And that memory is spiritual. And, So who is helping us? And, told you like a week ago that my dad came to me. And and then last night I was saying, well, I hope, and I shouldn't say it, but I really hope that Richard is haunting these people, you know. Um, and in his due time, he will tell us where his remains are. It's all going to come out. And, um, or God will just shine a light right there, like he did with Nadal Baim. He just shined a light. Here, this is how you do it. Shined a light on how you continue your live streams when Facebook, remember after January 6th, Facebook shut me down and my live streams shut me down. And God was like, put on that shield. I didn't know anything about it, you know and I had just this message come to me that put on that shield that the army gave and do your live stream. It'll work because that algorithm just reads your facial um, code, right? Your facial recognition, and that's how they can turn off and on your live stream. And sure enough, I put the shield on. It couldn't read my facial recognition and I could live stream. um, that was just a hand of God in all of that. And so I'm very grateful for this. I'm very, very grateful for this confession of Leilani Hart. I think if she truly confesses, um, her spirit will be freed of the agony. Will she have to be? Will she have to face accountability? Yes. What is the accountability? What is the punishment for an international premeditated murder of a Fort Bliss whistleblower soldier? It's the lethal injection. That's what she'll be facing. And, but there's something that's much more important than that. And that is um, doing the right thing and confessing frees your soul. Frees it makes it makes you right with God. And so that the tide is pulling her to confess. And yes, her attempt here is to deceive. Her attempt here is to project. Her attempt here is absolutely with her deception to misdirect, um, to take the attention off of the findings that we have been receiving lately on all of the insurance fraud, and of course the FitFam and the LLC fraud, and of course the uh, fraud that is being connected to contractual. A lot of people don't know about this because we haven't talked about it, but the procurement process in contracts, um, that is being tampered with, that we're working behind the scenes because Richard was absolutely reporting on this fraud. And, so we're just, every time we find the fraud, and every time, really, we don't even find it. It just comes to us and we have to document it. We have to um, file it with the correct agencies, and sometimes they have to redirect us, but we're learning the system. It just takes a while, and you cannot give up. And then all of a sudden, you have this amazing thing called a confession. And this is a worst nightmare. even in the attempt to deceive. So, it goes to the story of Joseph in the Bible where the brothers had absolutely, they were up to no good, as I say, and their whole purpose was to murder their brother or to sell him into slavery, which they ended up doing. Their first purpose was to murder him. They wanted to murder him. And then, in their discussions, they were like, well, we can get rid of him by just selling him into slavery. They'll kill him, right? And, and then deceiving the father, right? And their intention was absolutely evil. So I'm not saying that the intention for this confession is not evil. It is evil. It really is. And the more that we go through it, the more I'll explain in the next couple days. But the intention is to deceive. It is to, um, it's like, geez, I need a cease and desist. I need to. This is slander, right? It's slander. It's all kinds of stuff. So it is really evil, and it needs to be addressed as that. But at the same time, even though she means it for evil, God means it for good. And it is the worst nightmare for Bob Moore and James Hart. It really is. And Dallas Hart. It is not good news for them. This has been a real good day for us, and I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for bringing this to our attention and for having this confession because it's really, I cannot tell you what a nightmare this is for Bob Moore. Okay, it's not going to be good for him. So thank you so much. And if you have any questions, uh, but putting this all together, we have a lot of letters that we have to write and to file because of this confession. It really, wow, wow. So, yeah, I wish that she would, and I'll ask her, Leilani, it's really good on the right side of things. Because one, and I know I'm probably wrong for feeling this way, but one thing when you read through her confessions, because it spews so much evil and lies and all of that, um, you're like, oh my gosh, her life must be total chaos. Must be total chaos. Yeah. And so I would say, even though I need to, and she didn't mention David Pochet in this, and that's why I'm saying that Bob Moore is not going to be happy because where is David Pochet? Where is he? He's not in here. And of course, Carlos is there. Carlos is in it, but not Pochet. And Pochet is a big deal, a very big deal. We've reached out to him, and I hope that did some good because the good side, the right side of this, even in the hell of this situation, and it has been hell. I'm not going to lie to y'all. Um, you know, but God wants us to do this, and um, and it's an honor to be on the right side, to fight against what they did with the children in the emergency intake center to fight against the trafficking in the borderland, to fight for our son who was absolutely murdered, yet he lives. She's claiming that he's alive. He is alive, and he's alive in spirit, and um, but they murdered him. They murdered him. So, you know, it's really heartbreaking to see to think how many people, because she talks about Park University here, how many people were hurt. I mean, you should read this. It is absolutely chaos. And I know that she had several complaints at Park University, and they kicked her off campus. Um, she doesn't tell the truth about the incidences, and I don't claim to have the whole truth because Park University cannot really be trusted for what they say, right? Um, but she absolutely, I can tell you that I can tell you what I know is a lie. Um, and Park University is a big deal because it really connects everybody, and they haven't been having classes. They have online classes. I don't know if they've resumed their in classroom classes yet. So we have a lot of writing to do, a lot of complaints, and we have to just consider it an honor, just like Joseph, suffering through the slavery, doing the right thing, doing the right thing, doing the right thing, and then becoming, really essentially, just below the Pharaoh, having, all that power over the most powerful nation at the time, Egypt. Egypt was the most powerful. To have that kind of power, um, God put him in that situation um, because of the evil intent of his brothers. And God meant it for good to save a lot of lives. And so we have to count this an honor um, to undertake reading through this confession, which is, it's like, oh my gosh, my brain. Um, but reading through it, making sense of it, uncovering, well, just today we uncovered things that, yeah, it's, this could really break the case. I don't know. We'll see. So I just want to say thank you very much. And um, I think Leilani Hart needs to make a true confession. A true confession. You know, um, a real true one. Being true to herself, selfless service, right? The true selfless service. Yeah, that's what she would be remembered as. Not the lying, confirmed convicted criminal, sex cult, prime suspect in the premeditated murder of a whistleblower young soldier, beautiful young soldier, Richard Halliday. Because accountability, that's where we're at right now. We have the admission about what happened to Richard. Nobody, nobody that's of right mind is saying that Richard is alive. Nobody. Um, physically. Physically. So, That's all been, and we have the receipts, that's all been declared. So we're in the accountability stage now, holding those that murdered Richard accountable. And yeah, getting the record straight, undoing the retaliation that was unjustly leveled against him. And then we can have a funeral, getting his remains, um, them pushing. We fought very hard because they gave us what, 3 days, 3 days, and they were like, you can get here, you know, get here to El Paso. We're gonna have like this little memorial on Memorial Day, or some kind of function that they were already gonna have, and just haphazardly mention Richard's name, you know. Um, no. Oh man, we fought. Uh, I stay pretty calm nowadays. At the beginning, I was not calm, because you could just tell that they were on this smear campaign and not looking for Richard, and we just didn't know what the heck was going on, and we just smelt betrayal all around us. Um, but I stay pretty calm right now, but I didn't stay calm that day. I did yell at the PAO, no, the casualty affairs officer on the phone. You will not have that situation on Fort Bliss for my son. You will not use his name. No, he's going to have a proper funeral. A proper, I don't even want to call it a memorial. It needs to be a proper funeral. And we need to get his remains, and we need to get the record straight, because that is what is required by law. And they are breaking the law. And so, and we need to show honor and dignity to our fallen soldiers, our military, and this dehumanizing of Richard. And in this confession, she really goes after me, and she, refers to me as an object. No, I'm a human. I am a warm blooded human. And what they've done to my son, I want them held accountable, because that's what the law requires. And I cannot say and promise that um, Leilani Hart, if she truly confessed, because I feel like she's really being pushed, she's fighting it, right? Um, if she really confessed, that she wouldn't have to face accountability and punishment. But I will tell her this, that she will have an inner peace that I think that she's never had before. So I can tell her that. Um, Thank you, everybody. Um, Thank you so much. That I just can't say it enough. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we will be back on tomorrow, God willing, and we'll make some sense out of this. But we do not want to, you know, stop the focus on our investigation in the insurance fraud, reporting what we have, reporting what we know, and also with FitFam, that is absolutely connected to this criminal network, and stop doing what is right, doing what is right for the safety of our soldiers, our service members, and our country. Thank you so much. And of course, El Paso. Beautiful, beautiful El Paso. that is suffering so much under usurper Bill Hicks. And this, we have so much news. So I want to say this to Yvonne Rosales. We're waiting for you. Do what is right. We are waiting for you. You need to kick this usurper out in handcuffs. He needs to be put in handcuffs and taken out of that district attorney's office. He is a trespasser. And we need to have a criminal justice system in El Paso. It is so important. And, so we are behind you, Yvonne Rosales. And I know, we know that, she's not sparkling clean, but she is the rightful district attorney. And so she has this opportunity to get sparkly clean, to come in and do her duty and do it right and be good to El Pasoans who are waiting for justice in their city, in their district, in their county. It's so important. They've suffered enough and they're being taken advantage of enough. And and our son's case, like so many other cases, it's not just our son's case. So many other cases depend on a proper district attorney, a prosecutor, to get accountability for the crimes committed. And that's why that's so important. So please reach out to Yvonne Rosales and say, look, stop worrying. Get out there. None of us, I mean, except for Richard. Richard is sparkly clean. He's very clean. And we're pretty sparkly too here at Team Farm Richard. We're pretty sparkly. If if we weren't so sparkly, they would have it all posted everywhere. And this right here is such a projection. Um yeah, because if I yeah, wow. Um anyway, once it gets out, you'll understand. You'll understand. But it's such a projection. Anyway, so, really none of us is totally sparkly clean, right? And we just want what's right. And what's right is Yvonne Rosales. She got the votes. Come on, Yvonne. Let's do this. We're not vulnerable women. We're strong. We're strong. So, God bless y'all. And yes, thank you. And we will be back tomorrow. God bless. Bye bye.